Hey, what's going on? It's Big E, Ian McNaughton here with another episode of SYP Today. We've got a couple podcasts coming out ahead of our Friday live stream with the NHL Draft Lottery and our SYP Creator Saturday selection. So we got a couple pods talking about some current events in sports, so I am ecstatic. Just a heads up, we're starting with the SYP Summer Olympics. They're going to start on July 31st. They're going to go to August 30th. We'll have that below it, YouTube video. You can sign up for that. And then secondly, we got our SYP Draft Lottery live stream coming up tomorrow. I'm recording this Thursday morning. Friday, June 26th. That's going to start approximately 5 p.m. depending on how we get set up and when we're all ready. But 5 p.m. is the live stream this Friday. Saturdays are SYP Creators Saturday selection. So basically, Scotty K and I are going head-to-head for Saturday selections. We'll discuss more about that later on. And then the SYP Summer Olympics are happening July 31st. Lots of shit happened. So, got to get some coffee in me. We're going to, this pod, I think we're going to just talk about hockey. We got 4 podcasts I could probably do with content about all major sports and maybe a 5th one about another random sport. But we're going to discuss hockey this time. And I'm just going to talk for, 30 minutes, an hour. I don't know, depending on how long this is. So the NHL is coming back. I don't know what the exact dates are yet. They might be out. I don't know if they are, but I have to give credit where credit's due to the players and the league for being the closest team to closest league, to coming back and playing. I would make that argument that the first major sport that's going to come back is going to be hockey or basketball. Although I should say baseball and basketball, we'll discuss those in later pods. I think they actually have their dates out, and they might be ahead of hockey. But I think hockey has probably done the best job out of all of these leagues in terms of collaboration and making sure that each side gets what they want. When I first was jotting down all these notes, it was like, wow, okay, so they're getting hub cities, they're putting in the phases, they're trying to include as many teams as they can. That's why they also have the draft lottery Friday, and then they're going to do probably a second draft lottery because we're all assuming that, I don't know if I should go through how the draft lottery actually works, but basically there's the 7 teams that didn't make the playoffs who are all ranked 1 through 7. And then there's 7 more teams, which are now labeled teams A, B, C, D, A, E, F, G, blah, 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 who are technically playing in the play-in, but those spots will be filled by teams that are eliminated in the play-in. The NHL has really figured this out, and has really, it's going to be confusing to some fans, but they've really actually put it all together and done their best to make sure everyone is included. Now, next season, we probably won't see the 2020-2021 season. Probably won't see it start until January is my guess. They've talked about it being before, but they're going to do the draft in October. I would think the NHL and Bettman would want the season to start with the Winter Classic next year. Assuming we get a season, there's no guarantee we get a season next year. But we still got the rest of this season. They're going to be playing them in 2 hub cities. One of them, I think Vegas is pretty much a lock. I think you can write in Vegas at this point. That from what I've seen and what I'm hearing, Vegas is definitely going to be a hub city. The concern with Vegas is that they've been pretty open for the last 3 weeks, I want to say. I don't know what day it is, but at least since June, I'm going to say since June, Vegas has been pretty open. People aren't wearing masks. They're going to casinos. They're pretty close with one another. That's a bit of a concern. The cases have upticked a bit in Vegas, and that's probably the biggest concern with the NHL in Vegas. Otherwise, they're cool with going to Vegas. They have some, have hotels. I don't know what arenas they want to use specifically or venues. Definitely T-Mobile Arena, which is where the Vegas Golden Knights play. They might want to use Orleans Arena. the MGM Grand Garden Arena. I don't know if they're going to use – I'm assuming they're also going to use the practice facilities where Vegas are right now, which I think might be Henderson, or they're building the one in Henderson. I can't confirm either or. Anyways, Vegas is pretty much a lock. You can just write in Vegas right now. The second hub city that they're trying to get is a Canadian city. Now, I have been saying this whole time that I thought Vegas and Vancouver were going to be the two hub cities. There was originally a concern with Canada as a result of our quarantine rules and restrictions. Now, I think they're creating a workaround, which is what I thought in the first place. They create some sort of workaround to make it possible for the NHL to be here. But it looks like Vancouver has hit a snag. Not in hotels, not in venues, none of that sort of stuff. I believe there is concern from our health ministry about having players come, because last week, 2 weeks ago, there was an uptick in NHL players, especially in Tampa Bay. I believe the Lightning had to close down their whole facility with COVID cases. And now Vancouver, I wouldn't say Vancouver is totally out from what I've seen or heard. It's just more likely they're going to go to Edmonton or Toronto, and I would think they would go to Edmonton instead of Toronto right now. I think Edmonton has enough hotels, has enough resources for everybody. They could go to Toronto. But again, the problem with Toronto, I think, is just they haven't handled COVID well. I don't know what their numbers are compared to Vegas. So I don't know if players would rather be in Toronto or Edmonton. Some of them probably don't even want to play. They'd rather be with their families. But it looks like if I had to put money on it right now, I would say Edmonton or Toronto would be the second hub city. And that's totally fair, I guess. Edmonton has been pushing hard for this. So has Toronto. Vancouver, I wouldn't say has been pushing as hard. They've just been in contact and working together with the league, while, Edmonton and Toronto really go for it and got it. But yeah, so we have 8 play-in series, I believe. We have Edmonton, Chicago, Vancouver, Minnesota, Nashville, Arizona, Calgary, Winnipeg. We have the Rangers and Hurricanes, the Panthers and the Islanders, Toronto, Columbus, and Pittsburgh, Montreal. I'm not going to make official picks on those yet because it's still, I think, a bit early. We can start talking about them now, but I think it's still a bit early to actually make picks, depending on what everybody's roster is going to look like and who's all going to be playing and who isn't going to be playing. But I'm really excited to see how those play-in games, play-in qualifying, whatever you want to call it, games go and where they're being held. Part of it because they've been talking about this, and I think this is true. Teams who are, cities who are hub cities, their teams can't actually play in their hub cities. For example, Vegas is probably not going to be playing in Vegas. They're going to have to go play in Edmonton or Toronto or Vancouver. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. That makes it, I think, a bit complicated. But even if the NHL decides that Vegas is going to play in their home city, they're not going to be going, the players aren't going to be traveling to their homes. They're going to be sort of in their bubble, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, in a hotel room. And that's all they're doing is basically going from the hotel to the practice rink, or from the hotel to the arena. They're not going to be spending time with family or friends like they maybe normally would. And I think the players are understanding of that. They probably don't love it, but they get it. They just need to play hockey. I don't know what the rules are in Vegas with going to casinos or pools or et cetera, et cetera. I doubt they're going to be allowed to go. But, again, you never know. The one thing I really wanted to discuss and talk about, I had this idea a while back. This was when they were first announcing their return to play plans. I said for the teams that aren't playing, so that's Detroit, Anaheim, LA, Ottawa, San Jose, Buffalo, New Jersey. I said for those teams they should do some sort of all-star fantasy draft tournament, a 3-on-3 all-star fantasy draft tournament. I think that'd be great. I think that would be the way to do it, is you have 4 teams, give a captain to each team. You can have Eichel as a captain, Kopitar as a captain, PK Subban as a captain, and name another guy, Dylan Larkin. I don't know, but you can have 4 teams with captains each, and then they pick their, guys that they want. You can have, 6 players on a team. I think that seems fair. You don't want to water down the, fantasy tournament too much. But you have 4 teams with 4 different captains, and it's a 3-on-3 tournament of all the teams, all the players from the teams that are eliminated and won't be playing. I would much rather watch that than I probably would the qualifying round. I think there's more intrigue in that. I think guys are going to would have more fun with that. I think that would be something the NHL should do. Obviously, it takes a lot more work because it's just more people you're having to deal with. More players. You probably have to go to another hub city. So, you just give, let's say the league goes to Toronto and Vegas, but you leave out Edmonton and Van. Why not just put a 3-on-3 fantasy tournament in Vancouver or Edmonton? That would be interesting. That's how you recuperate some of your dollars. Also, I think from now on, we should start, I don't know about messing with, but changing the playoff format. I really love the idea of, I was thinking about this the other day when I was hiking, because I just get all my great ideas when I hike, surprisingly. I'm just out in the woods, and I'm just like, you know what? How do we fix the NHL playoff format? And that's what I did. So pretty much there's going to be 32 teams. And I think during the regular season, it should be like soccer, where every team plays the other team once. So, like, you have 64 games. I think you get 32 home games and you get 32 road games. You play each team at home and on the road once. So you have a 64-game regular season. I think that would be more ideal than the 82. The players would like that. And then in the playoffs, what you do is the teams with the 2 worst records. So this year it would have been Detroit and Ottawa, I think. They don't get to play in the playoffs. 30 teams to get to play in the playoffs, though. You have 30 teams who make the playoffs, and you have 2 teams who don't. I think that would be fair. I don't know how exact – or actually, you could do 32. You actually could do 32 because I think that's actually better for the bracket. But – anyways, you have 32. Let's say 32. Let's say every team makes the playoffs after 64 games. Every team makes the playoffs, but the 1 seed plays the 32nd seed. So whoever had the best record this year, I think it's Boston. I could be wrong. I'm going to say it's the Bruins. They would play the worst team in Detroit. And then it goes down the line, et cetera, et cetera. Like 2 plays 31, 3 plays 30. So really, every team makes the playoff. But in the first round, instead of it being a 7-game series, you either make it a 3-game or a 5-game. And you just make more playoff dollars that way for the NHL. Because I would be interested in watching Boston play Detroit for 5 games. Boston would probably win the series in 2 games, and Detroit would just forfeit the 3rd game. But what I'm saying is that it's a new playoff system that I think people would like. You can make more playoff dollars. The players play less games. And, of course, when you get to, like, the conference finals and the Stanley Cup finals, then you play 7 games. But even in, like, what would be our second round now, the conference semifinals, you play 5 games or you play, 7-2. I just think there's 2 really good ideas with the 3-on-3 all-star fantasy draft and changing the playoff system. That's how I do it. That's how you solve the NHL. That's how you fix the NHL. Obviously, the NHL has a lot more work it needs to do outside of that, but those are just some options. So, not bad. Not a whole lot else going on outside the play-in games and the draft lottery. you know, you got the Buffalo situation. I guess it's something we're talking about. I don't know if you watch Arrested Development on Netflix, go watch it right now. I think you really like it. One of the things in Arrested Development that happens is, so the old guy who runs this company, George Blue, one of his traditions running the company is a Black Friday where all of his employees put all of the equipment, the company's equipment, into a moving van. And he says to the people, "Hey, we're gonna get a new office. Let's move. We gotta move. We gotta pack up all of our stuff, and we're gonna move to the new office." So all the employees pack up the new stuff, and the employees are like, "Oh, so where's our new office?" And George Blue says, "At your next job, you're all fired." So he basically just gets everyone to pack up the shit in a moving van, and then just fires everybody. It's a Black Friday. Then when he hires new people, they unload the moving van, put all the stuff back together, and go back to work normally, except with just an entirely different staff. That's what the Buffalo Sabres are. They fired 20 people in their staff the other day, which, okay. Why? Like, I don't think you can necessarily blame Botterill, who's the GM, for all this. It's really the people at the top. Like, here's the thing: every good organization, it starts from the top to the bottom. It starts with the ownership and how they respond, how they react, how they treat people, and it works its way down. It trickles down into the rest of the staff. That's how it works in sports, especially, because you see it with the New York Knicks. I've talked about this on SYP Today before. You see it with the New York Knicks and how awful their ownership is and how that trickles down onto the rest of the franchise. You see it with the Washington Redskins, although they seem to be in a pretty good spot with the hiring of Ron Rivera, their new head coach. With the Sabres, you have Terrence and Kim Pegula, who also own the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills look to be in a really good spot right now. In case you're not following football, the Bills are in a really good spot right now. They've done a lot of good things in the last few years with the Bills to set them up for success this year. With the Sabres, here's the thing. You can't run a hockey team like a football team. It's a different sport. The economics are different. And I'm not saying they're trying to do that. I'm just saying it looks really suspicious when you're firing 20 people and your team's not good, and your team hasn't been good for a while. So I don't know what the answer is for the Sabres. I get if Jack Eichel, who's the star, he's the captain, he's the face of the franchise. I get it if he wants out. I'd understand that. They really haven't done anything with him. They've tried to give – I will admit, they've tried to give him support. Jeff Skinner this year, that has not worked out. They drafted Rasmus Dahlin, and he's been pretty good on their back end. They just don't – they don't have any goaltending. Their goaltending has been trash for a while. Their defense has been bad, outside of probably Dahlin. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to the Sabres. You just keep going. Like, they'll find something that works. Like, the Sabres will unknowingly get lucky. Will just strike into something, and it'll work out for them. I'm not saying they're going to win a cup anytime soon. I'm saying they're going to find some success at some point, and either Eichel's going to be there or not. I don't know what the return is you can get for Eichel. I don't know what his contract is right now. I'm assuming he should be making at least $8 million a year. I know a lot of teams would probably love to have a Jack Eichel on their squad, but it just looks bad. It doesn't look good. When you do shit like that as a organization, people take notice. People take notice and stuff like that. You can't. There's no hiding that. So, I mean, the Sabres probably have some ownership. I don't want to say issues, but I'm afraid they're trying to run it too much like a football team, and you just can't run a hockey team the way you run a football team. You just can't. It's different. It's a different market. It's a different sport. It's a different, economy. It's all different. It's all different. So, so that's the Sabres. Yesterday. So again, today's Thursday. Yesterday, Wednesday, the Hockey Hall of Fame announced 5 new members of the Hockey Hall of Fame, including Jarome Iginla and Marian Hossa. They also elected former NHL defenseman Doug Wilson and Kevin Lowe. And then in the females class, they announced Kim St. Pierre, former Team Canada goalie. And in the builders class, they announced Ken Holland, current GM of the Oilers, former GM of the Detroit Red Wings. Now, Iginla should be in. There's no doubt Iginla should be in. There's no doubt Wilson should be in. People are going to argue about Kevin Lowe. I think Kevin Lowe should be in. You have to ask, anybody who watched the 80s Dynasty Oilers. I have no problem with Kevin Lowe getting in. Here's the thing about with the Hockey Hall of Fame is that all these Hall of Fames are different, but the Hockey Hall of Fame should induct more members. I think there should be more people who should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame than aren't. The Football Hall of Fame, they have their criteria, they have their voting, and, for the most part, the Football Hall of Fame is pretty credible. Baseball Hall of Fame has gotten out of hand a little bit, but for the most part, their voting system is pretty credible, pretty respectable. People are, understanding of how it works. Basketball, I think it's the same thing. I'm not really too familiar with basketball. But Jarome Iginla should be in. No doubt Jarome Iginla should be a Hall of Famer. Marian Hossa, I'm not going to argue he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer because I think he is a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I don't think he should have got in, especially over Alex Mogilny. If you look at Mogilny's stats, Mogilny, I think, was a much more deadlier player than Hossa was. And I also think Daniel Alfredsson, who was kind of he was, I think, in his first year of eligibility as well. I think Alfredsson should have got in over Marian Hossa. I would rather see – I think Daniel Alfredsson was much better player than Marian Hossa. Alfredsson – yes, Hossa won 3 cups. I'm not going to argue that. Hossa won the cups. He has higher point shares than Alfredsson does. However, Alfredsson was arguably the top guy on a team that made the finals. Hossa was never the top player on any team that won the cup, on any of those Blackhawk teams. I think Alfredsson has a better playoff average than Hossa does. I think Alfredsson played more games than Hossa did, although Hossa had some problems with some injuries at the end of his career. I just think Alfredsson should have got in over Hossa, and Alex Mogilny definitely should have got in over Marian Hossa. So that's kind of the those are the player inductees, but the modern player inductees. Doug Wilson, he's been waiting for a while, but he would I don't know if you what you call it, but I guess classic players or guys who had to wait way too long. Same with Kevin Lowe. But I mean, I just learned that Ron Hextall isn't in the Hall of Fame. I was shocked by that. Hextall should be in for sure. There's a few other guys who we'll see if they get in or not. But congrats to Iginla and Hossa and Wilson and Lowe and Kim St. Pierre. Kenny Holland. Here's the thing. Holland was really good with the Red Wings when he first started the gig. One of the best GMs in the league. They were smart. They were knowledgeable. They kept the playoff streak going a lot longer than they probably should have because of Holland and his moves. So that's fine. It's just the way he left Detroit was not great. He was not making the brightest moves trade-wise and signing-wise. He drafted some good prospects, but re-signings and trades were not his thing. He was kind of pushed out the door to get Steve Yzerman. Like the last 5 years have not been good for Kenny Holland as an NHL GM. I mean, last year at the draft lottery for Detroit, he just looked like he was sleeping. He looked like he didn't care. And maybe because he knew his time was up with the Oilers or with the Red Wings. Now with the Oilers, you know, it's still way too early to see how well he does with the Oilers, but I think this is a bit too early for Holland to get in as a builder. I think Holland probably give him another 5 or 10 years, depending. See how well his success is with the Oilers, and then you could give him the nod then. But it just feels way too early with Ken Holland. That's kind of my take on the Hall of Fame notes and inductees. Yeah, that's about all that's really interesting with the NHL going on. In case you are wondering, we are doing our live stream around 5 p.m. Friday night. Check that out on our YouTube channel. Players who I'm a dark horse player. I'm going to say dark horse players because obviously I'm a big Alexis Lafreniere guy. But I'll finish the pod off with some dark horse players who I really like, who I'm really interested in. I'm going to go through my notes here because I write this stuff down because I'm a nerd. Probably somebody, I would say definitely 2 guys who I'm for sure interested in. Starting a sting forward, Jacob Perreault. Perreault, it's super fun to watch. You know, he's definitely got top 6 potential in the NHL. He's speedy, he's fast, all around fun. I really enjoyed watching his film. Perreault, I would think it's going to get drafted somewhere in the top 20. I really like him a lot over some other guys. He scored, 70 points in 57 games. So he's not a bad play by any means if you're going to try and pick up an intriguing, forward prospect in the top 20 and you missed out on everybody in, between 10 to 15 or even before that. So I really like Jacob Perreault. D-man, a guy who I really like is Braden Schneider from Brandon. Schneider is kind of a contrast to most of the D-men in this draft. Most of the D-men in this draft, I would say, are offensive defensemen or two-way D-men, and Schneider is more of a stay-at-home, sturdy defenseman. I don't know if Duncan Keith is a fair comp to him, but he's definitely a safe, quality D-man. Like, he's going to be in the NHL in 2 years. No doubt about it. He is a fantastic D-man. He's the guy that teams really like. He's not what the current or prototype, modern NHL D-man is, where he's breaking out the play all the time or he's carrying the puck over the blue line. He's more of a stay-at-home guy and loves being physical. He can put up some offensive numbers if needed, but that's not quite where his game that's not quite the strength of his game, I should say. So, yeah, I would say Braden Schneider, Jacob Perreault, and if I had to give you one more name that I'd like, I'll go with Carter Savoie from Sherwood Park in the Alberta Junior Hockey League in Junior A. He's a really interesting case study because Savoie, he got drafted by the Regina Pats in 2017. Probably good enough to make the WHL. And in case that name sounds familiar, his younger brother Matthew has been getting all the attention with the Winnipeg Ice. But he gets drafted by Regina in 2017, doesn't go to the WHL, decides he's going to play Junior A hockey to keep his college options open. And instead, he puts up 99 points in 54 games with Sherwood Park Crusaders in the AJHL. Fast, speedy, electric, explosive. The only question is just the competition level, really. It's he does this against junior A prospects? How would he fare against major junior guys? How would he do against, AHL level guys and then on to the NHL? I think he's a really fun guy to watch. I really enjoyed watching his film. Explosive, creative, dynamic, all the whatever buzzwords you want to use about him, he's got them. He's going to go to the University of Denver next year, so he's not going to be playing NHL hockey next year. But he's kind of a guy to keep an eye out on, seeing how well he performs with the University of Denver in some NCAA hockey, because the kid was great in Junior A this year. Absolutely terrific. So those are three guys who I'd really keep an eye out on if you want some dark horse guys to know or have an interest in or follow throughout this draft process. Again, the draft lottery, there's possibly two draft lotteries. The first draft lottery is going to take place Friday night, 5 p.m. We'll be live streaming it. And then potentially we will see a second part to the live stream, or a second part to the draft lottery. We might even live stream that. Second part to the draft lottery, which will be probably in August, I would think, sometime, maybe September after the play-in games. We'll see how that goes. And then the actual draft, I don't think will take place until October. Who knows what junior hockey is going to look like this year. They just announced a return to play date of October 2nd, I believe, for the WHL, and which I think is kind of around where everybody in the OHL and the QMJHL is hoping to play. But the WHL, I think, is coming back October 2nd, depending on all the states and provinces who agree. So we won't see an NHL draft until October. And guys like Alexis Lafreniere, they've talked about going to Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing in the K next year or any other European league. There's a lot of European players who are in the first round as well. So they could be, just going back to playing in Europe for another year anyways. But, don't be shocked if guys like Lafreniere, Quentin Byfield, Cole Perfetti, Drysdale, if they're all going back, if they go over to Europe next year. So that's SYP Today. Thank you very much for listening. This is the Hockey Pod. Again, be sure to sign up for the SYP Summer Olympics. We'll have a link for that in the description below on our YouTube video. Watch the live stream Friday, 5 p.m. YouTube. You don't want to miss that. What's at stake on Friday night? I'm glad you asked. If the Red Wings get first overall, I have to paint my nails red. I don't know if that includes toenails, but at least my fingernails. So that's going to be interesting. And if Anaheim gets the first overall pick, our boy Scotty K has to wear Team USA gear for an entire day. We were going to go Kings gear, but I think USA is more of a punishment for him than Kings gear. And then Saturday, SYP Creator Saturday selections. You're going to want to check that out. Scotty K and I are going to be, our Saturday selections, which we're going to be, going head-to-head in some Chell, some 2K, and another game of his choice, probably Madden or something. Maybe we'll do another Chell game. What's at stake there, in case you're wondering? The winner gets a bottle of Pink Whitney from the loser. So that's going to be really fun. That's going to be really exciting. You're going to want to check that out. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And, we'll see you Friday night at the live stream and Saturday at SYP Saturday selections with the creators. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.